Do not fear, do not fear, even though you fall. Do not fear, I have conquered evil. Do not fear, never be afraid.
I'm sure you all remember here a few years ago, there was a basketball game, a high school basketball game, and one of the teams had kind of a mascot. He was a young man who was autistic, and yet he loved basketball. He loved to watch this team. He was part of the high school. He was kind of like an honorary manager, and he was always there. And on the last night of the season of his senior year, the coach decided to have him dress out in a uniform and decided he would put him in at just toward the end of the game, just so that he could experience it for a second or two. Now, the coach didn't expect him to do anything. I'm sure everybody thought, oh, what a nice thing, because they were looking at him and they basically decided, well, he's autistic, he's not very well coordinated, probably thought he was a little bit dumb, and he's not going to be able to do anything when he gets out here. Maybe the other players on the other team thought the same thing. But when he got out there, 2 minutes left, bang, 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 he just started making baskets like it was going out of style. Nothing could stop him. It got on the national news. They're even making a movie about this. And it reminds us sometimes how dumb we can be when we judge people. St. James is kind of like the apostle of practical Christianity. He says, this is what it means to be a Christian. And one of the things he says is if we show partiality, that is if we start judging people, we're not Christians. We may call ourselves that, but we're not. Now, understand what he's talking about. I mean, there are practical day-to-day things. That's not what he's talking about. Like you're walking down the hall between classes and you walk by somebody and you take a sniff and it's, sweet Mother McCree, you smell like a dead mule in August. Now, that might get you a bust in the mouth, but that is not the judgment that James is talking about. It's not what Jesus talks about when he says, judge not, lest ye be judged. The judgment they're talking about there is to see somebody and judge them worthy of you or unworthy of you just by their appearance. The rich man comes into the church, and of course, we want him to sit right next to us. I mean, this wealthy man, who knows? Maybe when he gets up, maybe something will fall out, On the other hand, what is wrong with those stupid ushers setting this bum next to me when there's a poor man? And James is saying if we make those kind of distinctions, then we're committing a great sin. Because what we're doing is we're saying that person doesn't count. That this person has value because he's rich, and this person doesn't have value because he isn't rich. And so God, is telling us today that to judge somebody simply by their appearance is a terrible thing to do. It always reminds me, my grandfather used to say, to judge somebody by the way they look is to be a pinhead. Your head is so small, you ain't got no room for brains. But to understand that when you turn someone away just because they're different, or because maybe they're not cool, they don't dress the way that you do, maybe their family doesn't have the money so they can look really sharp all the time, you may deny yourself knowing somebody who is really special. And all of that tends to make us deaf. All that kind of deafness and stuff like that keeps us from seeing who we are. It keeps us from enjoying those around us, and worst of all, it keeps us from hearing the Word of God. And our lives are left short because of that. We're left short from the things that we should know, the people that maybe we could experience, and more than that, letting God speak to us. Because remember, God is the only one who really can take a sow's ear and turn it into a silk purse. You know, you look back through our history, there are a lot of people who, at first glance, we wouldn't want to have anything to do with. But then we find out that God transforms them and they're special people. And that they really can make a difference. But you know, also for us, I told this story last week at Mass, is that when a person isn't open to judging people, and again, there's a difference between just seeing ordinary things. You know, again, you know, my cousin Larry, we used to call him Light Fingers Larry because he had this philosophy of life that what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. And so whenever he came for a visit, when I was a little kid, I knew if I didn't want him to take everything I owned, I had to hide it. But I liked Larry. He was a lot of fun to be around. Now, that's just kind of practical thing there. But I would never say that Larry was no good. I would never say that Larry doesn't have any value as a human being. Opening ourselves up and letting God speak to us and recognizing how important it is, you know, that every human being can be important, can really help us to really live our lives in a much better way than that a lot of us do. You know, how many of us are involved with cliques? You know, this group, we're the in crowd. Do you know what it means when you're saying you're the in crowd? You've got to find somebody else to be out, right? Because you can't be in if everybody is in. And that's a person who the only way they can build themselves up is tear somebody else down. Boy, isn't that a lousy way to value yourself? I'm cool because you're not. If that's the way we see ourselves, man, what do you see when you look in the mirror? And the sad thing is, again, it's a lousy way to live. But I'd like to share a story now of some people who lived a different way, who didn't make judgments like that, who were open to the voice of Christ in their lives. Now, when I was stationed at the University of Texas, before I came here, we had a young lady who was very active at the Student Center, the Catholic Student Center. Her name was Eileen. And Eileen was something else. Beautiful woman. And as I tell people, you know, I've been celibate for 21 years. I know a beautiful woman when I see one, okay? Add to that, she was brilliant. You know, she was on the president's list every quarter. You know, the dean's list is for people that are kind of to the top. The president's list is for those that are the very top. I mean, if there was somebody that wanted to be a snob, it certainly could have been Eileen. Eileen was the head of our campus, Catholic campus Students for Life. And the reason that she was involved in that issue was she was a survivor. And she would often, if you'd give everybody give her a chance, she'd tell them her story. I even had her do it at the masses one weekend. She was telling about how her mother told her this story about how she came to be born.
Do not fear when the tempter calls you. Do not fear, even though you fall. Do not